You know, when you break your arm, the medical world offers a very specific kind of comfort.
Right. It's a very clear-cut process.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you go and they put you in front of a machine, and an X-ray shows you exactly what is wrong.
You get that jagged white line on a black background.
Right. The doctor points to it, you look at it, and there is just zero ambiguity. I mean, it's a clean binary. It is either broken or it is not broken.
And, we crave that level of visibility. It gives us a sense of control over our own lives.
Oh, totally.
Because if we can categorize a problem, well, we feel like we can conquer it.
But what happens when the thing that is broken isn't your radius or your ulna?
Yeah, that's where it gets complicated.
Right. Like, what happens when the thing that feels fractured is your sense of purpose or your understanding of why you're even getting out of bed in the morning?
There is definitely no X-ray machine for existential drift.
Exactly. You can't go to a clinic and have a doctor point to a glowing screen and say, yes, right there, your meaning is fractured. Let's put a cast on your psyche.
I mean, I think a lot of people wish they could.
Oh, for sure. But the landscape of inner transformation is murky, it's frustrating, and, it is entirely invisible to the naked eye.
It really is.
But what if I told you there actually is a roadmap? A very old, very demanding roadmap.
And it is demanding.
Yeah, and what if I told you that to truly understand how to live like, to get the clearest possible picture of your own finite existence, the very first thing you have to look at, the thing you have to stare directly in the face without blinking, is death.
I mean, that is the ultimate paradigm shift right there.
It really is.
It takes the one thing modern society spends billions of dollars trying to hide, sanitize, and just ignore, and it places it dead center as the foundational requirement for understanding life.
So, welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are undertaking a mission that has the potential to completely rewire how you look at your time on this earth.
This is a big one today.
Yeah, we are unpacking the sources detailing Chapter 3 of a rather obscure, highly complex 19th century text.
Right, Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma.
Exactly. And specifically, we are looking at the chapter simply titled The Master.
Which is a heavy title.
It is. Now, whether you are a history buff, a philosopher at heart, or just someone listening to this right now trying to figure out how to navigate a world that feels increasingly loud and devoid of meaning, this text offers something extraordinary.
But I think to understand the weight of the master, we have to understand the steps that got us to this doorway, right?
Right, because we don't just start there.
Exactly. Context is everything here. Pike is describing an evolutionary ladder for the human character. I mean, you don't just wake up one day and decide to be a master.
You have to climb.
You have to climb.
Yeah.
And if we look at the progression outlined in the broader text, the master is the third stage.
Right.
It builds upon two very specific, very grueling previous stages. First, you have the stage of the apprentice.
Which, when you dig into it, is entirely about raw discipline. It is the taming of the chaotic self.
Yeah, it is learning how to follow rules you might not fully understand yet.
Right, like the basics.
Exactly. The apprentice is figuring out how to show up on time, how to control their impulses, how to lay the foundation. It is the unglamorous, repetitive work of building basic habits.
So you are basically learning how to learn.
Precisely.
It's the mental equivalent of, I don't know, chopping wood and carrying water.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You aren't asking profound questions yet. You are just trying to get your grip right on the axe.
Right. But once you master that discipline, the text says you graduate to the second stage.
The fellowcraft.
Yes, the fellowcraft. And this is a massive leap because this is where the intellect is fully awakened.
So what does that actually look like?
Well, the fellowcraft stage is where you start mapping the world. You are no longer just blindly following instructions.
Right. You are analyzing the instructions.
Exactly. You categorize, you study, you understand the mechanics of how things work. You become highly capable.
You become smart.
Right. This is the stage where humanity builds civilizations, creates laws, and develops science. I mean, it is the realm of the capable, highly functional adult.
Which sounds like the finish line. I mean, if you have the discipline of the apprentice and the soaring intellect of the fellowcraft, you win.
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah. You are a successful human being. But, and this is where the text pulls the rug out from under us, being smart, being capable, and having perfect discipline is not the final destination.
Not even close.
In fact, the sources emphasize that there comes a moment where intellect alone completely fails you. You hit an invisible ceiling.
Right. The intellect can explain the mechanics of the universe, but it cannot explain the meaning of it.
And that brings us to the threshold of today's focus, The master.
Yes. We arrive at a stage that requires a profundity that makes the intellect look, well, superficial.
Because it is no longer about how much data you can process.
Exactly. It is about confronting the absolute limits of your existence. It's about death, loss, and a radical, often painful transformation of the self.
And I think we need to make a crucial distinction right here at the beginning for everyone listening.
Oh, definitely.
Because this is not an abstract, morbid, or gloomy academic exercise.
No, we are not doing a deep dive into the biological realities of the end of life.
Right. This is intensely, urgently practical. It is an exploration of how recognizing our limits, enduring inevitable suffering, and seeking elusive, difficult truths can utterly transform the way you interact with your family tonight.
Or how you handle a crisis at work tomorrow.
Exactly. It is a shortcut, a very difficult shortcut, but a shortcut nonetheless, to understanding what it means to live with unshakable purpose.
So how do we cross that threshold?
Well, according to Pike, the very first thing the master must confront is the symbolism of death.
And notice that word symbolism.
Right. Pike introduces death not as the physical flatline, not the cessation of the heartbeat.
He introduces it as a mechanism for ending ignorance.
Yeah. It is the deliberate, violent shedding of illusion.
Which is huge. He forces a total redefinition of a word that carries so much baggage for us.
Oh, yeah. We are conditioned from childhood to fear the concept of death.
Right, we associate it strictly with loss, with endings, with the terrifying unknown. But the master is asked to confront death philosophically, as a tool.
A tool for what, exactly?
Well, if you want to understand life, you have to understand its boundaries. Think of a painting. If you don't know where the edge of the canvas is, the composition makes no sense.
The colors and shapes have no framing.
Exactly. Confronting the absolute limit of your existence provides the frame. It strips away all the trivial anxieties that consume, 90% of our daily energy.
It forces a radical, almost uncomfortable focus on what is actually essential.
Yes.
I was trying to wrap my head around this concept of philosophical death, and the best way I can visualize it is like a massive mandatory software update for the human mind.
Oh, I like that.
Think about a computer or a smartphone that you've been using for years without ever restarting it. The operating system is glitchy.
It's bloated with junk files.
Right. There are 85 tabs open in the background, the battery drains in an hour, and the whole machine is just lagging.
Every time you try to do something simple, you get the spinning wheel of death.
Exactly. And that is a brilliant way to frame the state of the modern human ego.
It really is. Because that glitchy operating system is our ego.
Yes. It's our ignorance, our daily illusions. The background apps draining our battery are our petty resentments.
Or our obsession with how many likes a post got.
Or our anxiety about a minor social awkwardness from 3 years ago. I mean, we all have that.
Oh, for sure. Or our belief that buying a slightly more expensive car will
Yeah.
finally make us feel complete.
Right. We operate under the illusion that these things are the most important metrics in the universe.
The bloatware of the human condition.
That is perfect. The bloatware. And when your phone is acting like that, you can't fix it by just opening another app.
No, you can't life hack your way out of a corrupted operating system.
The only way to fix it is terrifying. The entire system has to completely shut down. The screen has to go pitch black.
It has to die.
Yeah. All those open tabs have to be wiped out. It has to sit in that dark, unresponsive state before the new system, the mastery, the deeper awareness, can reboot.
But the ego is terrified of the screen going black.
God hates it.
The ego fights the reboot with everything it has because the ego's primary function is its own survival.
Right, it wants to stay in control.
It would literally rather live in a glitchy, miserable state of anxiety than face the absolute void of shutting down.
Wow.
And this is exactly why Pike argues the master absolutely must go through this process. It answers the question of why we can't just skip to the enlightenment part.
So this philosophical death is an active, conscious shedding.
Yes, it is not something that passively happens to you while you sleep. It is a terrifying letting go.
But what exactly are we letting go of, though? I mean, if I am actively participating in this philosophical death, what am I killing?
You are killing your attachments to the illusions of permanence.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, you are letting go of the illusion that you will always have tomorrow to say what needs to be said.
Oof, that's a hard one.
Right. You are killing the illusion that your professional title is who you actually are. You are shattering the belief that you can control the universe.
And when you strip all of that away,
When you strip all of that away, the individual transforms into a state of much deeper, hyper-lucid awareness. You are quite literally putting the old, bloated, anxious version of yourself in the ground.
Which honestly sounds incredibly freeing. I mean, imagine waking up and not carrying the weight of all those trivial background apps.
It is free.
You strip away the illusions, you confront your limits, you let the old OS die, and the screen reboots. The canvas has an edge now, so the painting makes sense.
Exactly.
But when you actually read the sources describing what happens next, it's a bit of a shock.
It is a massive pivot.
Right, because you would think the text would say, and then the master was totally enlightened and happy forever.
But it doesn't.
No. The text points out that once you achieve this rebooted state, you are hit with a stark, almost chilling realization.
Something essential is missing.
Yes. It is the great paradox of this philosophical framework. The shedding of illusion does not leave you with a warm, fuzzy feeling of total contentment.
No, it leaves you with a profound, echoing sense of absence.
Wow.
When you clear out the noise, you finally have the quiet necessary to realize that the room is actually empty.
I have to admit, when I was digging into the sources on this, my immediate reaction was resistance. I wanted to push back against the text right here.
Pushback. What was the friction for you?
Okay, let's look at the timeline. We just talked about the fellowcraft stage.
Right, the awakening of the intellect.
Yeah. We became capable, smart, analytical beings. Then we go through this massive philosophical reboot to clear out the ego and the junk files. We face our mortality. We strip away the illusions.
Correct.
So, theoretically, we're at the absolute peak of human clarity.
You are.
Then why does the text suddenly introduce this theme of the legend of loss? Why are we suddenly searching for a lost word or a lost truth?
I see where you're going.
Right. I mean, how did we lose something right at the moment we supposedly woke up? Shouldn't we have all the answers right now?
Your frustration is exactly what every person who engages deeply with philosophy eventually hits.
Oh, good. It's not just me.
Not at all. It is the central paradox of intellectual and spiritual growth. Yes, you are at the peak of your mental clarity. But think about what happens when you climb to the absolute peak of a mountain.
Okay.
Before, when you were down in the valley, your vision was limited to the trees right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
You thought you knew the whole world because your world was small.
Right.
But when you reach the peak, your incredible vantage point allows you to see the horizon clearly for the very first time. And what do you see on that horizon?
You see how massive the world is. You see, like, hundreds of miles of territory you haven't explored.
Precisely. You see how much you do not know.
Oh, wow.
The intellect is a powerful tool. It builds suspension bridges, it maps the human genome, and sends rovers to Mars. But the intellect has a ceiling.
Yeah, it hits a wall.
It can tell you how the universe operates, but it falls agonizingly silent when you ask it why the universe exists at all.
So, like, the intellect can tell you exactly how a biological virus replicates, but it can't tell you how to find meaning after that virus takes someone you love.
That is exactly it. And that realization that the intellect cannot answer the most fundamental questions of meaning is the loss.
Okay, that makes so much sense now.
It represents humanity's fundamental separation from ultimate truth.
So the lost word that Pike talks about isn't like a misplacement of something you used to hold in your hand.
Right.
It isn't a vocabulary word that slipped your mind.
Definitely not. It is the sudden, humbling realization of your inherent limitations. The text states that the master becomes a seeker, searching for what has been lost.
But crucially, and this is where the entire operating system shifts again, the text insists that the search is not external.
Right. It's not an archaeological dig in some distant desert.
It is an internal excavation.
You cannot find the lost word in a library. You cannot find it in a laboratory. The truth the master seeks is buried beneath the layers of their own consciousness.
So, to you listening right now, I want you to think about this in the context of your own day-to-day life.
That's a great exercise.
What truths feel lost or hidden beneath the relentless noise of your routine? Think about the rhythm of modern existence.
Oh, it's exhausting.
It really is. You wake up to an alarm. Before your feet even hit the floor, you check your emails, you scroll through the news, you see what the stock market is doing.
You commute, you work, you answer endless messages.
You commute home, you doom scroll on the couch to numb your brain, you sleep. Wash, rinse, repeat. Where is the meaning in that cycle?
There isn't much.
Right. So the lost word is the core meaning of your existence that we are constantly struggling to rediscover.
And we do feel it. We feel the absence of it.
Yes.
We feel that low-grade hum of anxiety that tells us something is missing.
It's that fleeting, almost painful feeling you get during rare moments of stillness.
Like when you're out in nature.
Exactly. Maybe you are walking outside at night and you look up at the stars and the sheer scale of the galaxy just hits you.
Or maybe it's the moment you hold a newborn baby.
Or stand quietly in an old forest. For a split second, the veil drops and you think, ah, there is something more. There's a deep, profound current running underneath all of this.
And you almost grasp it.
You almost have it. And then your phone buzzes with a notification about a calendar invite, and the feeling is instantly gone. The word is lost again.
That fleeting feeling is the echo of the lost word.
Wow.
And the great tragedy of modern life is that instead of turning inward to find the source of that echo, we try to drown it out with external noise.
We try to buy the lost word on Amazon.
We try to achieve it through a promotion at work. We try to find it in the validation of strangers on the internet.
But the master recognizes that the external world can never provide it.
No, the external world can only provide distractions. The search must turn inward.
But let's be totally honest about turning inward.
It's not easy.
No, it is not a day at the spa. Realizing that ultimate truth is missing, and then taking on the solitary responsibility to hunt for it inside the dark caverns of your own mind, that introduces massive friction.
Huge friction.
Because when you sit alone in silence, all those things you've been running from rise to the surface.
Everything you've ignored.
Which leads us directly into what I think is the most difficult, challenging part of this entire text. The crucible of growth, the absolute necessity of suffering and sacrifice.
This is undoubtedly the hardest pill to swallow in Pike's entire framework, especially for modern readers.
Why do you think that is?
Because we live in an era that views suffering purely as an error code.
Oh, that's interesting, an error code.
Yeah, it is a glitch in the system that needs to be diagnosed, medicated, distracted away, or erased as quickly as humanly possible.
That is so true. Our entire consumer economy is built on the promise of eliminating friction and discomfort.
Exactly. We want everything seamless.
And I am totally guilty of this. My instinct is always to optimize. I listen to podcasts about life hacks. I want the shortcut.
We all do.
If I am feeling existential dread, my first thought isn't, let me sit in this dread and see what it teaches me. My first thought is, how do I fix this feeling by tomorrow afternoon?
Right. What app can I download to meditate this away?
Exactly. So when I read a text that says suffering isn't just an unfortunate accident, but an actual requirement for mastery, my brain rebels. Like, why can't I hack this? Why is suffering a requirement?
Because you cannot hack genuine moral and spiritual transformation.
You just can't.
The sources synthesize Pike's view on this into three very difficult, uncompromising realities.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, suffering refines character. It acts as a fire that burns away the very illusions we discussed earlier.
Okay.
Second, struggle leads to transformation. Without resistance, there's absolutely no psychological or moral muscle growth.
Right, like lifting weights.
Exactly. And third, sacrifice is what gives meaning to life.
It's the blacksmith analogy.
Oh yeah, explain that.
Well, if you want to make a sword, you don't just gently polish a piece of raw iron ore and hope for the best.
No, the raw material has to go into the fire.
Exactly. When a blacksmith takes a piece of carbon steel, that metal isn't being punished when it is thrust into a forge burning at 2,000 degrees.
It isn't being abused when it is dragged out, glowing white hot, and struck repeatedly with a heavy hammer.
Right. If that metal had consciousness, if it could feel the heat and the blows, it would probably scream.
Oh, it would absolutely scream.
You would think, why is this happening to me? This is agonizing. Let me out of the fire. But the blacksmith knows something the metal doesn't.
What does the blacksmith know?
The blacksmith knows that at a molecular level, the heat is the only thing that can change the carbon structure.
The hammer is the only thing that can align the grain.
Without the fire and the hammer, it remains a brittle, useless lump of iron. With it, it is refined, it becomes strong, flexible, and sharp. It is given its ultimate shape and purpose.
That analogy perfectly captures the exact mechanism of growth described in the text.
Yeah.
Yes. The fire alters the internal structure. And if we connect this to the broader picture of how we live today, we see a culture that tries to pull the metal out of the forge before it gets hot.
Wow, yeah. We optimize for comfort.
We want the strength of the forged steel without ever enduring the anvil.
We want the 6-minute abs, but we don't want to sweat.
Exactly.
We want the profound wisdom of a life well lived, but we don't want to endure the grief that usually provides that wisdom.
We try to bypass the crucible.
Yeah.
But the path of the master suggests the exact opposite.
Leaning into the struggle.
Yes, leaning into the struggle is the only mathematical way to achieve genuine interchange. The text is incredibly clear on this. You cannot bypass it.
So how does this look in real life?
Well, think about how different stages of development handle a major life crisis, say a profound personal loss or a massive career failure.
Okay.
The apprentice, who only knows basic rules, might be completely crushed by it, unable to process the chaos.
Because they just follow the manual.
Right, and the manual didn't prepare them for this. Then you have the fellow craft, relying only on intellect. They might try to rationalize it.
To explain it away with data or to numb it with logic?
Precisely.
Yeah.
But the master uses it.
The master stays in the fire.
Yes. The master allows the fire to burn away the impurities of the ego.
So they aren't, like, actively looking for pain.
No, they don't seek out suffering just for the sake of misery. That would just be masochism.
Right.
But when suffering inevitably arrives, they recognize it as the forge. They understand that the friction of the hammer is what aligns their moral grain.
Okay, let's trace the logic here. Because we are building a massive philosophical structure.
We really are.
We've let our old ego-driven operating system die. We've recognized the void, the fact that there is a deep internal truth, the lost word that we have lost touch with.
Right.
We've abandoned the life hacks. We have willingly walked into the fire of suffering and allowed the hammer of struggle to refine our character. We are hardened. We are clear-eyed. We have done the work.
We have.
So, what happens when we actually find the truth? We've paid the price. Do we finally get to grab this deep meaning, put it in a glass case, and say, I have the answer?
You would certainly think so. After all that effort, the human brain demands a reward.
It demands completion.
But this is where the text introduces the most profound and perhaps the most frustrating lesson in humility.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And this brings us to the next massive conceptual shift. The endless pursuit and the absolute humility of truth.
Because the sources are very explicit here. They say that truth remains central to the master, but it is now more elusive than in the previous stages.
Right, the ultimate truth cannot be fully possessed. It must be continually sought.
What's fascinating here is the absolute, uncompromising requirement of humility.
It is non-negotiable.
I mean, after all the discipline, the intellectual awakening, the terrifying philosophical death, and the agonizing crucible of suffering, the master, paradoxically, does not claim to have the answers.
In fact, the text suggests that anyone who claims to possess the absolute truth in a neat little package is demonstrating unequivocally that they are not a master.
Wow. So true mastery is marked by a deep acceptance of life's infinite complexity.
And a commitment to a pursuit that has no finish line.
I am going to push back hard on this because it feels like a violation of basic human psychology.
Oh, it absolutely is. Let's hear it.
We are wired by evolution to complete tasks. We hunt the mammoth, we kill the mammoth, we eat the mammoth.
Task complete, dopamine released.
Exactly. To be told, hey, you're going to spend your entire life climbing this incredibly steep mountain, enduring all this suffering to refine your character. But by the way, there is no summit. You will never, ever reach the top.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
It doesn't just sound exhausting. It sounds like nihilism.
I can see why you'd say that.
It sounds like the Greek myth of Sisyphus, cursed to roll a massive boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it roll back down every single time he gets near the top. If there is no summit, why take the first step? Why even try?
That is the natural, logical reaction of the fellow craft intellect.
Oh, my intellect is showing.
It is. Because the intellect wants a neat equation that equals a definitive answer. It wants the dopamine hit of task completion.
It really does.
It is entirely normal to feel a wave of despair when faced with the prospect of an endless journey.
So how do we get past that despair?
Well, if we sit with this concept, if we really look at what Pike is saying, we have to reframe our entire understanding of what the goal is.
Okay, reframe it for me.
This endlessness is not a punishment. It is, in fact, the ultimate liberation.
How can running a race with no finish line be liberating? That sounds like a nightmare.
Let's look at the alternative. Think about what happens historically, even psychologically, when a human being or a group of human beings believes they have fully, absolutely possessed the ultimate truth.
Okay.
What happens when they put the truth in a box and lock it?
They stop seeking. They start asking questions.
They become rigid. They become dogmatic.
Ah, I see.
If you believe your box contains the absolute truth of the universe, then anyone who questions the box is not just annoying. They are an existential threat.
You have to build walls around your box.
You have to attack anyone who suggests the box might be incomplete.
You become a fanatic.
Exactly. The possession of absolute truth is the birthplace of tyranny.
Whether it's political tyranny, religious extremism, or just becoming a deeply unpleasant, arrogant person in your own family.
Right. Because the truth is infinite. It cannot be captured and put in a box.
So the journey of mastery never ends specifically to prevent dogmatic stagnation.
The master is defined by the verb of seeking, not the noun of possessing.
So the goal isn't the destination, the goal is the trajectory.
Yes, it is an infinite game. James Carse wrote brilliantly about this concept.
The finite and infinite games.
Right. Finite games are played to be won. Infinite games are played to keep the game going.
Okay, so if you think life is a finite game where the goal is to acquire the ultimate truth and win, you will eventually become frustrated.
Frustrated, rigid, and ultimately defeated by the fact that the universe is too big for your brain.
But if you realize it is an infinite game, the entire vibe changes.
Completely.
The joy, the deep purpose is found in the continuous revelation.
It's found in the endless, fractal deepening of your understanding.
Once you realize you don't have to carry the agonizing burden of having all the answers, you are free to remain endlessly curious.
That's exactly it.
Okay, sitting with that for a second, that actually does change the emotional weight of it.
It shifts it, right?
Yeah, it takes it from being a frustrating treadmill to being an endless adventure. You aren't failing to reach the edge of the map. You are simply discovering that the map expands forever.
Every time you crest a hill, there is a new, beautiful valley to explore.
I can see the liberation in that. But wait,
What's the holdup?
this brings up a massive, unavoidable logistical problem based on everything we've talked about so far.
Let's hear the flaw in the logic.
We established in the very first segment that we have to confront our mortality. The edge of the canvas.
Yes, the philosophical death.
Right. Our physical bodies are going to break down. Our time is strictly finite. We only get maybe 80 or 90 years if we are lucky.
Very true.
So, how on earth do we reconcile a temporary, decaying physical existence with the infinite nature of the truth we are supposed to be seeking? If we are playing an infinite game, but we only have a limited amount of oxygen in our tanks, the math doesn't work. We are going to die before we even scratch the surface of the map.
That is the exact friction point that leads us into the next critical layer of the text.
Because Pike anticipates this.
He anticipates this exact despair.
So what's the answer?
The text provides an answer to the dilemma of finite time versus infinite truth by radically redefining the concept of immortality.
Focusing on the enduring nature of the soul.
Exactly. Pike explores this duality. The body is temporary, it is dust.
But the soul, the human consciousness, or the essence of who we are, reaches beyond physical existence.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to clarify how we're using these terms.
Yeah, let's be careful here.
In the context of this philosophical text, we are not necessarily engaging in a theological debate about a literal afterlife with golden gates or reincarnation.
Right. Whether you hold specific religious beliefs about what happens after your brain stops functioning, or whether you are a strict materialist.
The philosophical concept of immortality here is still profoundly relevant.
How so?
Immortality, in this specific framework, is about living in a way that transcends the timeline of your biological life. It is about the permanence of your impact on the fabric of reality.
It's the butterfly effect applied to human morality.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
When I was reading this, the image that kept coming to mind was the ripples of a stone thrown into a pond.
Walk me through that.
Think about it. You are standing at the edge of a perfectly calm, glass-like lake. You pick up a heavy stone and you toss it in.
Okay.
The physical action, the stone flying through the air and breaking the surface of the water, is incredibly brief. It takes less than a second. Splash, and the physical event is entirely over.
The stone sinks to the dark bottom and doesn't move again.
Right. That stone is our physical lifespan. It is heavy, it is real, but it is terrifyingly brief. But what happens to the water?
The energy transfer creates waves.
Exactly. The ripples created by that impact travel outward indefinitely. They expand in perfect concentric circles.
They hit the shore. They shift grains of sand that have sat there for 1,000 years.
They move the lily pads. They alter the current for the insects on the surface.
And according to the text, our actions, our virtues, and our thoughts are exactly like those ripples.
They are not just isolated events that disappear the moment they happen.
No, they carry lasting, permanent significance far beyond our physical lifespan.
That is a beautiful distillation of the concept. The stone is the body. The ripples are the soul's impact.
And think about the sheer terrifying weight of that reality.
Terrifying.
Yes. If you show profound kindness to a stranger at their absolute lowest moment, you might alter their psychological trajectory for that day.
Okay.
Because of that, they don't scream at their child when they get home.
Huh?
Because that child isn't traumatized that night, They grow up with a slightly different emotional baseline, which alters how they treat their own children 50 years later.
So your one momentary action, your splash in the pond, has physically altered the reality of people who haven't even been born yet.
That is immortality.
It works in the negative, too, which is what makes it so heavy.
It absolutely does.
A cruel comment, an act of greed, a moment of cowardice, those create ripples that travel just as far, poisoning the water long after you are gone.
They do.
So to you listening to this, wherever you are right now, I really want you to stop and reflect on this.
It's a question worth pausing for.
If you view your everyday actions not just as fleeting, disposable moments that vanish into the past, but as permanent physical alterations to the timeline of the universe, how does that change what you are going to do for the rest of today?
It changes everything.
How does that change the way you speak to your partner when you are tired and irritable? How does it change the way you handle a stressful, high-stakes project at work where you could easily cut ethical corners?
If every single action is a ripple that outlives you, the stakes of a random Tuesday afternoon are suddenly astronomical.
Astronomical.
Yeah.
This is the core of Pike's view of immortality, the enduring physical impact of a life lived aligned with truth.
And understanding that our actions permanently transcend our time on Earth brings immense, crushing weight to how we spend the finite time we actually have.
It really changes the entire mathematical equation of your life.
Exactly. The fellowcraft intellect asks, how can I extract the most value for myself before my clock runs out?
But the master asks, what kind of permanent ripples am I morally responsible for creating?
Which brings us to the culmination of this entire journey.
We have reached the point where the philosophy has to become action.
Yes, the final theme we extracted from the sources is living with purpose and the master's ongoing journey.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Because the sheer awareness of our mortality, combined with the permanence of our ripples, radically changes how we live.
Life gains its intense meaning precisely because we recognize its limits.
Time is finite, therefore our actions are infinitely valuable.
Let's synthesize all the disparate dots we've connected so far in this deep dive because they form a very specific architecture.
Let's do it. We started with the shedding of illusion and the ego, the terrifying philosophical death and reboot.
That silence led to the internal search for the lost truth, realizing the answers aren't on Amazon.
We accepted the refinement of our character through the agonizing fire of suffering.
We embraced the humble, endless pursuit of a truth that is too big to ever fully capture.
And we realized that our actions echo into immortality.
All of these painful, beautiful realizations culminate in one single, undeniable force: purpose.
Because the journey from apprentice to cellocraft to master, as the sources repeatedly emphasize, is not about achieving a rank.
It is not a merit badge you sew onto your sash so you can sit back in a recliner and say, I did it, I'm enlightened.
No, it is an ongoing, daily, exhausting, exhilarating interchange.
The master becomes hyper-conscious of moral responsibility.
They become deeply committed to justice.
They realize they can no longer live for self alone, but must live for something greater, because they see the ripples.
So if we break down the granular, practical application of this, how do you actually live differently if you truly, in your bones, understand the value of time and the weight of your ripples?
You stop wasting your incredibly limited oxygen on the trivial.
Yes. You stop engaging in petty, ego-driven arguments on the internet that alter nothing but your own blood pressure.
You stop chasing external validation for people you don't even respect.
You align your daily actions with virtue, knowing your time is a non-renewable resource.
You spend it on enduring truths.
You live with a profound sense of urgency, not out of a frantic panic, but out of a deep, overwhelming respect for the sheer statistical miracle of your own existence.
It is the difference between wandering aimlessly through a massive grocery store on a Sunday afternoon because you have all day to browse the aisles, versus running into that same store with exactly 5 minutes until they lock the doors.
Knowing exactly what 3 ingredients you need to cook a masterpiece for someone you love.
The master knows the store is closing, the lights are already flickering, so they only grab what truly matters.
They don't waste time in the junk food aisle.
That is exactly it. The urgency clarifies the vision.
And this is why the text emphasizes that this transformation is an ongoing journey. It never truly ends.
Living with purpose isn't a permanent state of Zen that you achieve once and then maintain effortlessly while floating on a cloud.
No, it is a gritty, daily practice of realigning yourself with that truth.
Every single morning, you have to wake up and choose the fire of refinement over the numbness of comfort.
You have to choose the humility of the infinite game over the arrogance of the closed box.
You have to actively choose to create positive ripples rather than hoarding stones.
Exactly.
Okay, let's take a breath and do a rapid recap of the incredible, dense philosophical territory we've just covered through these sources.
It's been a lot.
We started by confronting the fact that death, philosophically speaking, is a vital symbol of transformation.
It's the necessary, painful shutdown of our old, ego-driven, glitchy operating system.
We learned that the ultimate truth of the universe feels lost to us, and we have to dig deep inward, past the noise of modern life, to find it.
We realize that true growth demands the struggle, the heat, and the heavy hammer of the forge, and that we cannot life hack our way out of suffering.
We discovered that true mastery is an endless, lifelong journey of seeking with deep humility, not arrogantly claiming to possess all the answers.
And finally, we realize that our actions are immortal ripples, giving our finite, fleeting time incredible, urgent purpose.
It is a staggering, profoundly demanding framework for how to live a human life.
And what is perhaps most exciting, or most intimidating, depending on how you look at it, is that this is not the end of the road in Pike's text.
No, it is not.
Looking ahead to the next stage mentioned in the broader sources, the journey continues into what is called the secret master.
Ooh, the secret master.
Here, the raw concepts we've explored today begin to bloom into a nuanced understanding of deep responsibility, the profound power of silence, and an even more intricate unfolding of moral awareness in a chaotic world.
But that is an exploration for another deep dive.
Indeed it is. That is a whole other mountain to climb.
But before we wrap up our time together today, I want to leave you, the listener, with a lingering question. Something to chew on as you go about the rest of your day, as you commute, or as you sit down for dinner tonight.
It's a good one.
We talked at the very beginning about how the old, glitchy operating system of our minds needs to crash so the new, clearer one can reboot.
Right.
So, if death, in this context, is the deliberate, conscious shedding of illusion and ignorance to make way for a deeper truth, what is the one illusion in your own life that you need to let die today so that your own pursuit of mastery can truly begin?
A vital, potentially life-altering question to ask yourself.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredibly deep dive. Reflect deeply on your ripples, live intentionally with your finite time, and remember that what you are desperately seeking out there in the noise might just be buried inside you already. Catch you